Let's Talk is a series of interviews with remarkable Australians. Simply, it's been designed to normalise difficult conversations and aimed at helping the day-to-day challenges that many of us face. There aren't too many bigger names in Australian sport than Swans supporter Ian Thorpe. At just 15, a world champion. At 17, expected to win gold in Sydney.
Hey.
Hello, mate.
How are you?
How are you? His life, like many of ours, has been complex and remains a work in progress. So, let's talk. Presented by AIA. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Lee Matthews got to 12 grand finals. He won 4 as a player, 4 as a coach. He says he would never have been satisfied regardless of what he did as a player or a coach. Your record says that you are a sporting and an Olympic icon. Do you sit here satisfied with what you achieved in the pool?
I'm satisfied with what I've achieved, but that said, I could have accomplished more. So you also have to assume in this as well. You know, when I was a kid, my goal was to be an Olympian. My dream was to be an Olympic champion. And they're two very different things.
Yes.
The dream is something that it's a loftier ambition. And it's the kind of thing that you don't know if you're allowed to aim for something like that. It's like saying, I want to be an astronaut, and then putting in the work to actually being able to do that. So I'd fulfilled that when I was a kid, as you said, before I was 17. And so I considered at that stage, well, what do I actually look for now? I've accomplished more than what I ever expected that I would in this. Is it time for me to actually move on with another area in my life? And so I consider that for a brief time, even at the Sydney Olympics when I finished competing. Do I just move away from the sport?
Did you contemplate retiring at 17?
Yeah, I did.
Because of the anxiety, the pressure, or there is more to achieve?
There's more to achieve outside of it, and I've accomplished everything that I could have imagined and more at that stage.
Sort of Ash Barty-esque.
Yeah, but it's really, I think what happens, and for all of us, if we look at Ash Barty, great example as well, is we want to project ourselves into someone else's career without understanding what they actually want, who that person is. We think we have an understanding of them. And everyone who wants Ash Barty to continue to play really was willing her on, wanting her to continue being successful. It made people feel great about themselves. And at the same time, we also want to see Ash be happy. So we're challenged by this. And I think, for a lot of athletes, and for a lot of people watching athletes as well, I think they look at the privilege that you have to be participating in something that they love.
Yeah.
And so they want something else for you when it may not be the thing that is actually motivating for you. It isn't the reason why you started out. I mean, I don't think anyone starts out in sport wanting to be Olympic champion when they begin. You fall in love with what you do, and then it evolves from there.
So we all have to make decisions along the way. What's the biggest or most complex decision you've ever had to make?
So retiring for me was difficult. It was, at the point when I retired in 2006, it had nothing to do with swimming. It had to do with me really not feeling like I had any control over my life whatsoever. It felt as though it wasn't my own, and I wanted that back. I also wanted back, what it was like for me when I was a kid, when I loved what I did, which was, training and then racing. It wasn't adding, complexity to that, which, became more about, the interviews that you're doing and, some of the press side around that. Then doing things for sponsors, being someone that's in the public eye, wasn't really for me. I wanted to just be able to continue swimming. And no one could have anticipated the level of fame that came with what I did. It hadn't happened to a swimmer anywhere in the world, and it just happened to me. And so I was unprepared for that side of it.
So when you say you lost your life, who did you actually end up losing it to? Everyone else?
Yeah, it's, what I said was, it was for other people, what had happened with my life. That a lot of it was, meeting other people's expectations rather than satisfying what I wanted out of what I was doing. And if it had been simpler, if it was back to, being able to train and compete and being able to do that with some privacy as well, not getting followed by paparazzi and things, not having to have security around me when I do things at my house, not having stalkers, there's a lot that you start to add on to what was, a very, kind of naive thing in sport. The notion of that you train and then you compete. But the reality of my world and the context of what swimming became was completely different to when I started.
If all of the cameras weren't pointed at you and you weren't living this extraordinary life of celebrity and fame, do you think the anxiety and the depression would have still found its way to you?
Yeah, I most definitely do. I don't think it's something, look, those things can contribute to it, but I actually think this is something that you are born with, and then circumstances can, then make circumstances worse during those times, adding pressure to someone that's in that situation. But I also look at it in somewhat a philosophical sense as well. Had I not been someone with depression, I wouldn't have the level of empathy that I have for other people and what they're going through. And so that in itself has given me an insight into, others that I'm appreciative of.
Yeah.
And, it's something that, I've been through times where I haven't actually thought that I would get better. I thought, when doctors told me this is something that is actually manageable, I didn't believe them because that wasn't what I felt. And I couldn't get myself out of that rut for, periods of time. And then it's only been, probably in the last 10 years or so that I've actually got to a point where I went, actually, I'm quite happy. And I only thought I could get to a level of being content. I never thought I'd be happy. And then it was working backwards from that. What have I done to feel this way? And how do I replicate that into, what I do? And then, you realize that this is something that you can get on top of, around a level of depression that can be debilitating at times. But, I've found some ways that work for me.
When you first experienced the depression, did you know what was happening to you?
I think what happens when you're younger, you don't have the words to articulate what that experience is like. And so you know that there's something wrong, there's something that's up, but you don't know how to manage it, you don't know how to speak to people about it as well. And over a period of time, you actually learn that, some of this is actually normal to the human experience, and then other parts of this is, no, this is too much, this is excessive, this is not what is normal. And then you realize that you do need assistance. And, for me and, a lot of the things that I had accomplished, I was very independent of other people. So putting my hand up and actually saying I had a problem or I was struggling with something is a difficult thing to do. So it wasn't the people that were close to me that knew about it. I had to seek, professional help. Someone that I trusted, firstly to be diagnosed, but secondly to actually try and get this back, what's missing in my life. And then also accepting that this is something that won't just go away. This is something that you have to work on and that you'll be dealing with for years to come.
Yeah. Are your dark days now not quite as dark as they were?
I'm really hesitant to actually say, I won't go through a dark patch like that again. Because I realise that for me, this is going to be something that I'm going to be challenged with every day. And that's okay. I've come to terms with that. And I have some days now where I'm just off and, I am actually in a depressive state, and I actually have to give myself a chance and say, do you know what, I'm not going to do today, but tomorrow morning I'm going to do this. So I put a plan in place of what I will be doing. And so it's kind of having a respect of myself, of what I'm going through, but also creating the outcome that even though I am struggling, I will accomplish this during that day. And it starts with just doing something. So it's usually get up, walk the dog. It's as simple as that. And once you're kind of out of bed, it makes everything that much easier. I mean, I think 50% of accomplishing anything is just getting started.
Yeah. When you came out, what were you most afraid of?
Well, it's change. It's as simple as that. I didn't know where my life was going to go at that point.
Once you'd verbalised it.
Yeah. I came out to, people that were very close to me, like a small group of friends and family. And I made the decision that I will come out to the world instead. I'm not doing this one-on-one. I'm not doing this over and over again. And I was kind of told by one of those people when I had come out to them and then said, I'm doing this interview. I'm actually going to come out during the interview. And they said, well, hang on, do you want to get used to it first? And I'm like, I've taken this long to take one step out of the closet, so to speak. I'm not taking a step back the other way. And I was ready. And the point of being out is really so that you become an example for other people that makes it easier for them. They may be in more difficult circumstances than what you're in. And you make it that little bit easier for someone else.
Had you wanted to come out for a long time?
I had, but I wasn't ready to.
Right.
It was like, is it really important that other people do know or don't know? And also, I had to look at, my career, and I've spoken to a number of gay athletes about this, or especially gay male athletes. And, we're kind of, there's things that are alluded to. You're not told directly because you're not out, but you hear things that, this is going to affect your commerciality. People will just focus on your sexuality. All of these things change. And I look at my time, would I have been able to train in certain places with the rest of the team had I been out? When I competed, would I have been booed in certain countries?
Do you think you would have?
Yeah, possibly, where I was competing.
Did you want to come out during your swimming career?
Not really.
Right.
No, I was under such an immense amount of pressure. It could have been the straw that broke the camel's back.
Got it.
Kind of, I had enough on my plate where, I'm expected to win things. It isn't a surprise when I do. It's just assumed that I will.
Yeah.
And, with that, when you have successfully continued and not been beaten in a race, statistically, you're more likely to be beaten in that race. Can't go on forever. And so, there's that, and then, add another complexity to this as well. And I wasn't ready for that. I didn't want it. I had enough right then and there that, I don't think I would have been able to perform.
Plate was pretty full.
It was full.
A hot topic at the moment. I was listening on the radio as to how a player would be received if he came out in the AFL now and said he was gay. Callers rang in from everywhere. Everyone has a different view. How do you think a player in a team sport would be viewed, and bearing in mind that they would be the first at AFL level, whereas AFLW, it's so simple and easy and...
Sure. I think they'd be received well, right, overall. And I think, some of the concerns that male athletes that happen to be gay have had previously, some of that has disappeared. I think firstly the team would be probably the most accepting of this.
Yep. And
around you, that is the group that you want acceptance from, those people that you train with and that you work towards a common goal. Then when it comes to, the fans, I'm not 100% sure, but I think mostly that person would be embraced. I look at like Josh Cavallo, for example. He came out, there's still homophobic slurs against him that are happening, but the wider part of society has accepted him. If I look at this in the AFL, I do think it's possible. And I think that athlete could potentially be extremely popular as well. And that's something that has changed. And I think, for them, I think if you spoke to brands, they would love it. Quite frankly, they would love for that to happen, because brands are looking at a reflection of what society is. And it's usually companies, it's organisations that once they're on board with something, it means the majority of consumers actually accept that. That's when government changes, is when businesses start to talk, not just the community about things. So I'm really curious. I mean, I hope to see it. And looking at the numbers, it is actually quite likely that there might be someone in the AFL right now that probably is gay, but is struggling to work out how they're going to do this. But I'm encouraging them that it will be a much better path than they probably imagine. But again, they're going to make that journey a lot easier for kids that may be struggling somewhere else in the country, because if you can't see it, you can't be it.
Once we all accept our vulnerabilities, whatever they are, and we all have them, and we're all a work in progress, and we talk about them, seemingly things are easier. Are you now completely comfortable in your own skin?
No.
No?
None of us are.
Yeah, good. I'm glad that's the answer.
I
thought I might have been one of the only ones.
Yeah, it's your vanity. It's getting the best of you. I am far more comfortable in my skin now than I ever have been in my life. But there's a certain amount of vulnerability that we all should have. I think some of it's actually quite healthy.
Yeah. What do you hope for?
What I hope for is kind of, to be able to exist alongside different people, not to just tolerate them, but to actually embrace our differences and realise that there is a strength in that. And there's a beautiful part of that if you're accepting of other people and how it can give you an insight into your own life and your own experience. I think it's one of the things that I hold dearest about this country is that we do live in a society that is mostly getting that part right. We could do better. And I think when you do speak to young people, you realise that we will get better.
I loved watching you as an athlete, loved working with you at the Olympics, privileged to talk to you, and I hope you remain very happy. Thank you, Thorpe.
Cheers. Thanks, mate. Good to see you.
Thank you, mate. What did you come up with question-wise?
Oh, I just wanted to ask, was mental health-wise, was it easy to manage once you put a label on it?
It's actually a good question. I actually knew that I had mental health problems when I was in my teens. I've known for a long time. But I don't think I had an appreciation for what extent it could actually affect me. That's why I didn't know. And so for everyone, it really is a journey to being able to understand yourself and what works for you, what doesn't work. It's that variation, but also realizing that it isn't something that needs to stop you from doing anything in your life. You get to make that choice as well, even though at times you don't feel like you can. Does that answer it well?
Great question,
cool.
Great answer. For more Let's Talk interviews, please visit afl.com.au/on-demand and search Let's Talk, or visit aia.com.au/Let's Talk. And the conversations will also be available wherever you access your AFL podcasts. And if you're experiencing mental ill health, we do encourage you to reach out for support. That support may be from family, friends, your GP, or a mental health professional. You can also seek further information and advice from the free and confidential support services listed on the Mental Health and Wellbeing Hub at play.afl/clubhelp.